Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rhonda Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the California Black Health Network. Welcome to the fourth session in a five-part series on caregiving in the Black community. Today, we're going to be talking about caring for the caregiver, and we have a person here who knows all about that and is going to give us some really good information today about things to be mindful of and how we can become a conscious caregiver while taking care of ourselves and being conscious about that too. So today we have Nadine Roberts Cornish, and we'll hear lots of great information from her shortly, but just to kind of set the stage for today, I think it's important as we think about our lives and healthy aging, it's important to recognize, the role that caregiving plays in our lives as family members, but also in the African American community, and understand the landscape and the current situation for our community and what we can do to be better prepared and plan for and access the support and resources that we need to go through that journey with our loved ones successfully. And so just in general, African American caregivers generally average about 48 years old or of age. They are more often unmarried than any other racial or ethnic group and report a lower household income than non-Hispanic, white, and Asian caregivers. African American caregivers also typically care for a parent, a spouse, or a grandparent who is about 65 years old and generally has multiple health conditions and sometimes a long-term physical condition. And so most likely at some point in our lives, we may be a caregiver to someone we love and care about, or someone that we love and care about may be a caregiver to us. And so I think it's important, in whatever situation that the individual who is playing the role of a caregiver, make sure that he or she is mindful about what they need to do for themselves to make sure that they are maintaining their health and well-being. And so before we start the program today, just a few housekeeping rules or items. Before we hear from Nadine, just wanted to let everybody know that we are in meeting mode today, so we should be able to see everyone. We want this session today to be very interactive and engaging, so you're free to unmute and ask questions and reveal yourselves to our speaker today. If you can, give a shout out to folks that you know or see that you recognize, or just say hello, what your name is, where you're from, or what city you live in, and if you're currently providing caregiving support to someone in your life. And if you have any questions, please feel free, again, to write them down while Nadine is talking, so that when she's done with her presentation, we can have an interactive and engaging dialogue, and you can all get your questions answered. But before I introduce Nadine, just a couple things about the California Black Health Network for those of you who may not be familiar with us. Ambria, I'm going to ask you just to advance the slide for me today. So if you could go to the next slide, that would be helpful. Thank you. And so our vision at the California Black Health Network is to create a California where every African American and Black immigrant has the opportunity to live a long, healthy life that's free from racism, violence, and health inequities. And we work to do that every day by ensuring that everyone, regardless of where they live, how well educated they are, how much money they make, who they love, how they identify, and so on, has the opportunity to access quality, equitable, primary as well as behavioral health care, and ensures that they do not succumb to any disease, definitely any that's preventable unnecessarily so. Next slide, please. And so I have the pleasure of introducing you to our speaker today, again, Nadine Roberts Cornish. And she is a proud native of New Orleans, Louisiana, and grew up with the tradition of a large family and seafood gumbo, which is one of my favorites, and all its complexities and how it, I guess, has been prepared in a loving way. And that's an integral part of her family and her life growing up in New Orleans. She and her family relocated to California, where the tradition continued. And when her mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor, Nadine donned her caregiving hat and she'll tell part of her story today. So inspired by her life events and her personal journey, she founded the Caregivers Guardian to assist family caregivers with practical solutions, resources, and inspiration. In her inaugural book, she informs and inspires as she shares real life practical stories that offers solutions and an understanding of the 5 steps to conscious caregiving. So really curious to hear all about that. So Nadine, take it away.
Thank you so very much, Rhonda, and thanks to your team for coordinating and making this possible. And thanks especially to all of the caregivers that made this a priority and are actually here today. And thanks to all of you that are listening to this recording later. I am privileged to be here. Caregiving is probably one of the most transformative experiences that any caregiver can have. And so I speak from the experience of being a caregiver, serving as caregiver to my mother for nearly 15 years, and professionally, as I have supported caregivers now for 14 years, caregivers across the country. It has been the honor of my life to serve and support my mom through her journey. And I couldn't know then, that journey was literally preparing me for the work that I really was destined to do. I had different ideas about what that was supposed to be, but that lengthy caregiving journey with my mom, with a background in public health, I was especially privileged to know a lot. But I also recognized that there were many who had no idea as to how to navigate the waters and navigate the many systems that you encounter as a caregiver for a loved one. And so 14 years, it's been 14 years that we launched the Caregivers Guardian, a support services organization for family caregivers. And so I went from caring for my mom to now caring for many, many, many caregivers across the country. And it is definitely, it is my pride and joy. It is my honor to be able to serve and support caregivers. I'm especially pleased to be in this position today talking to you about self-care, because I don't believe that there's anything more important for a caregiver than to recognize the importance of self-care. So I'm going to take you through several slides, and we're going to go through those quickly. I'm going to ask some questions as we move along, and I want you to jot down your responses. I also want those of you who feel inclined to comment and to share to do so, because I want this to be interactive, and I want you to understand that self-care is not about thinking about it. I have so many caregivers who think about self-care but don't activate it. And today I want to shift us from thinking about self-care to actually activating and committing to our own self-care, because I don't believe there's anything more important for a caregiver than to recognize that self-care is non-negotiable. That said, I'm going to pull up the slides really quickly. Okay. Caring for the caregiver. I intentionally chose this photo to open our discussion this afternoon, because this is a multi-generational family, and every person depicted is a caregiver with the exception of one. Even the children are caregivers. Last year, it was brought to my attention in a way that I had never really considered the important role of children who are caregiving, children who are supporting caregivers. And so I really want to be mindful and want to be intentional about, when we talk about caregiving, that we talk about the entire family and we remember the children the kids who are caregiving as well. Okay, so my story, as I shared earlier, began, of course, caring for my mom. And man, that was almost 28 years ago. Whew. And during the time of my caregiving journey, my very sweet cousin began caring for her mother as well. My cousin Cornelia was an amazing daughter, mother, and grandmother, like many of you. She was indeed an extraordinary caregiver, loving, attentive, supportive, all of the characteristics that we want in a caregiver. She worked full time. She was the full-time caregiver to her mother, and she also took on the responsibility of caring for her younger nephew when her brother passed suddenly. And so she was a caregiver 24/7. And unfortunately, uh, she was not vigilant about her own self-care. And going to the doctor for herself was something that she just got to a point that she didn't do. And during that time frame, we didn't talk a lot. We didn't have a lot of conversations during that time frame. She was busy caregiving for her mom. I was busy caregiving for my mom. And it was really a sad day when I got the call from her daughter that she was in the hospital and she was in a coma. She had suffered with back pain for over 18 months and had just put off going to the doctor for as long as she possibly could. And when she couldn't walk, she was taken to the emergency room. She was examined. She was put into the hospital. A series of tests revealed that she had bone cancer that had already spread to her entire body. And within 48 hours, it had spread to her brain, and she was in a coma. And so Cornelia is a big reason, a big part of my why. On the days when I'm exhausted and when I am tired and I think about changing career, she is my why and my memory for how important it is that I do this work and that I do so in reminding, supporting, and demanding that caregivers make themselves a priority, first and foremost in the caregiving journey. So, conscious caregiving. What is conscious caregiving? In my book, Tears in My Gumbo, I really explain that conscious caregiving is caring on purpose with intention and a plan. Caring on purpose with an intention and a plan. So that is conscious caregiving as it pertains to caring for your loved one, but it's also conscious caregiving as it pertains to self-care. So I have a question for you. I want to know if you consider yourself a conscious caregiver. Is there a care plan in place for your loved one's care?
Do you want people to actually verbally respond to that or put something in the chat?
You know, if you could put something in the chat, that would be great. And if you are so inclined to raise your hand and share your response, I would love that as well. So do you consider yourself a conscious caregiver? Is there a plan in place for your loved one's care? And then is there a care plan in place for your self-care? Okay, we will visit that. We will revisit that in just a moment. Alrighty, slides, I need you to move forward. Thank you. Self-care. What does that look like for you? My very favorite definition of self-care is a new one, actually. And I wish I could take credit for it, but I'm going to give credit where it is due. It is offered by Tima Bryant, PhD, and author of the book Homecoming. If you have ever experienced trauma, if you are still struggling with the trauma that you have experienced, I highly recommend the book Homecoming by Tima Bryant. Tima is a professor, she is a psychologist, and now she's an award-winning author, because this book, Homecoming, is really pretty impressive. Tima Bryant defines self-care as coming home to self. Self-care is coming home to self. It is physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional care. That was the most comprehensive and powerful definition of self-care that I had seen. And so it's one that I am now adopting. And I'm very interested in hearing from any of you that have your own definition of what self-care is and what it means to you. Raya, I see you. You are in my view. Do you want to unmute and share?
Oh, Nadine, you caught me there. I do have a definition, but I've never stopped to put it into words. It's more like using my intuition and my instinct. When it's time to stop, it's time to stop. When it's time to get off my butt and plan something, have that plan, then it's time to do that and stop playing computer Scrabble 5 times in a row. That kind of thing. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Raya. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I appreciate that. The interesting thing about self-care is that it is unique to every individual. And I love how Raya says that for her, it's knowing intuitively when it's time to stop, paying attention to that sixth sense that's letting her know that it is time to move on. And so I want you to think about what self-care means for you. Okay, so when we talk about forms of self-care, I'm always interested and curious to hear about, what people perceive as self-care for themselves. Years ago, I had a caregiver who told me that her number one form of self-care was pulling weeds. And boy, did I judge that. But for her, getting in the dirt meant everything. It was restorative. It was therapeutic for her. And so that is like at the top of the list now when I talk about forms of self-care and things that people do that they consider self-care for themselves. And I'm sure some of these will resonate with you. And I want you to put into the chat, what is that number one thing for you that's non-negotiable as far as self-care is for you? So I've listed prayer, meditation, and worship, time in nature, phone calls with a best friend or family member. My favorite, dancing like nobody's watching. A really important one, I believe, is deep breathing. Stopping and taking time to breathe. Reading, writing, and journaling are also important forms of self-care. And listed last, because this is in no particular order, certainly not least, is listening to music. Music changes. It changes the energy. It changes the atmosphere. It changes how you feel. And to have a playlist or several playlists that have your favorite artists, have your favorite music, your favorite lyrics, is just simply priceless. It's a really, really important tool. So these are forms of self-care that are free. Doesn't cost you anything to do any of these. And it's worth considering, what is it that I can do in terms of making myself the priority for self-care? So we can talk about what we believe self-care is, we can define it, but being intentional about self-care is absolutely important. And being intentional about self-care means defining it, understanding your why, and accepting where you are in this particular season of your life. If this is your caregiving season and you are on that journey, accept that you have accepted that assignment. Accept that you have accepted the assignment. Acceptance there is good for your mental, emotional, and your physical well-being. Getting clear on what's important to you. All part of being intentional. Hey, if we can just get the slides, just go ahead on and advance. There we go. Okay. One of the more interesting conversations that I tend to have with caregivers is around the issue of boundaries, setting boundaries if they're not set, establishing boundaries, and ensuring that your boundaries are clear for you. Another one of my favorite professors is Brene Brown, Dr. Brene Brown. She defines boundaries in a simplistic way like I've never heard or read before. And that is simply what's okay and what's not. What's okay and what's not. If it's not okay, it is outside of your boundaries. If it's okay, it's within your boundaries. So anybody care to share whether or not boundaries is a challenge for them as part of the caregiving journey? Particularly, boundaries can be very, very challenging when we're caring for a parent, especially. That can be really, really challenging. So is there anyone who wants to chime in and share how they have managed to maintain boundaries, or share how they still continue to struggle as a result of the relationship with setting boundaries? I'm looking to see if I see a hand raised or see anyone that's interested in providing some input along those lines.
So not to call anybody out, but I see Patty's unmuted. I don't know if she was planning on sharing. No.
Okay, all righty. So boundaries is really, really critical. We conduct a weekly support group for caregivers every Monday, 12 noon Mountain Standard Time. We have caregivers who hop on the call for 1 hour of support. And for the month of August, we discuss boundaries and the importance of identifying your boundaries, establishing your boundaries. Because what's interesting about boundaries is that if you don't set them for yourself, somebody in your world is very happy to set them for you. So boundaries, another request for you to consider, defining what boundaries mean for you. And so that said, I want to ask if boundary setting has been especially difficult within the caregiving journey. Raya, you're like the kid who's sitting in the front row in school and looking eagerly and in anticipation. So I'm going to ask you, especially because I know you participated in the discussions around boundaries, and I really want to hear your thoughts around what setting boundaries has been like for you as you have journeyed this past year caring for your dad.
I'll give a current example. As you know, I spent a week at a meditation retreat, and that was a nice caregiver respite as well. When I got back, or towards the end of it, I began to realize, gosh, okay, going back to my fast-paced, crazy life as a caregiver. And then I took another step back and reframed it a little. I was able to reframe it. Maybe it's not so fast-paced. Maybe I'm trying to do too much. And maybe I can be more selective. And so with that in mind, I drove back home and had a fresher perspective on my whole day and my whole evening. And I realized, what things are really distractions that are keeping me from accepting my acceptance of the assignment, like what you had just posted. And my caregiving is my life right now. It's not something, I don't have a life over here and I'm trying to squeeze in the caregiving all around it. I've just begun to accept in a more deeper way, I guess, that, okay, this is what I decided and this is what it entails. It does entail my attention and my effort. It's because that's what I'm doing. It's not, oh, okay, now it's time to do this with dad, and then get back to my life. This is my life, so it's about being where my feet are.
I like that. I like that. It also reminds me of the importance of remembering that on this caregiving journey, caregiving is what we do. Just as you said, being intentional, being present, caregiving is what we do. Caregiving is not who we are. It is what we do. Thank you again for that, Raya. Okay.
Hi. Hi. This is Cheryl Brownlee. Hi. I just want to say one of the things that I learned, and I've known you forever, so you know me. When I was going through the caregiving of my mom, I didn't have boundaries. And I don't think I even had boundaries before my mom had got sick. And it wasn't until after my mom passed away that I began to have boundaries, or at least start to accept the fact that I needed to have boundaries. And so, and I'm still working through that. But I don't know if it's an experience that you need to go through to make you get there, but I hope that people that are currently caregiving do take that time for balance. I have a friend of mine on the Zoom that I really offer her, and I hope she gets a lot from this and understanding balance, because she does a lot for her family, her mother, and doesn't take the time for herself. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that. And yes, the hindsight is a great perspective, no question about it. And what we want to do to make sure that caregivers are healthy and well through the process is that they recognize during the journey the necessity of creating boundaries. And I have a quote up that says, "Nothing is sustainable without boundaries." There is nothing that you're able to continue to do if you don't create the boundaries. And because most of us have no idea as to how long our caregiving journey is going to be, it's so incredibly important that we become conscious around boundaries and become intentional about creating and setting those boundaries. And as I said earlier, if we don't choose to set them ourselves, somebody in our world is going to create boundaries for us. And that's never a good thing. And so
Hi,
I want
I'm
Yes.
sorry, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, finally, yay.
Yes.
This is Patty Brown is my name, and I really appreciate this session. And I'm kind of almost in tears, but at the end of the day, it's really a awesome session that you have here. Just a little bit about me, if I can take a few minutes. I lost my mom about 6 months ago. She went on to be with the Lord. And caregiving is a ministry when it's all said and done. It's more than just, something that we do. It's a ministry that we have and will keep and stay with us for the rest of our lives when it's all said and done. I brought my mother here from Chicago to California to make sure that the rest of her life was going to be a good life. And my mom lived to be 104 years old. I work a full-time job as well. I know you were talking about that, and I was able to, get people to come in, but that's all I did. I'm in the healthcare environment, so I see patients all the time. So I was always with a patient, either my own or mine at the clinic here. So it became really overwhelming at some point. But I think that the long and short of what I like to share with the group, those that are or are not or have, the 5 phases of grief and all that, that's very real. Just learning how to be yourself again. It's kind of like, I forgot about me. And I think caregivers forget about themselves. You forget what kind of food you like because you're preparing the type of food that they need to make sure that their diet is good and all those other kinds of things. You forget that you like certain kinds of things. So learning about yourself again is really vital, but setting those boundaries, you're talking about boundaries and stuff like that, that never even crossed my mind, so it's certainly something that I think is relevant to this. But that's really, all I wanted to share. But I think that this is just a real vital session that you're having right here. And I'm happy that I was able to participate and to be able to hopefully share something that maybe could help somebody else. So thank you.
We appreciate you, Patty. Thank you for being here. Our condolences to you on the loss of your mother, and our congratulations to you for staying the course and actually being able to care for your mother. I definitely appreciate your comments so very, very much. And so we've got a few minutes, and I see Robin has her hands raised.
Well, I didn't want to take too much of your time. I can wait till the end if you like. If you need to continue with your presentation, it's fine.
Okay. All righty. Make sure you jot those notes down because I don't want you to lose your thought, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I want to talk about the nuts and bolts of creating a self-care plan fueled by empowerment. All of you are familiar with the care plan for your loved one. If you are caring for a loved one yourself at home and you are under if your loved one is under medical supervision, there is a care plan that is laid out. And most of us are very clear and familiar with that. But the self-care plan is kind of foreign to many, many caregivers. I want to just simply define the word empowerment. And empowerment is simply the process of growing stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. And it is definitely my goal as a caregiver coaching consultant to ensure that my caregivers are indeed empowered. And so the self-care plan comes with a pledge. If you got your cameras handy, just simply take a picture of this list, but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. Most of it is self-explanatory, but I believe that an effective care plan starts with reflecting on your own needs. The number one thing that you want to do is take time to reflect on your own needs. As Patty said, you can get so overwhelmed by the caregiving process that you can forget what it is that you need. You can forget what you like, what you want. And so simply taking time out to reflect on your needs is where you start. The next thing is to set clear goals. You define specific self-care goals that align with your needs. And these goals, they should be actionable and achievable. For example, if you've been neglecting your physical health, a goal might be to exercise for at least 30 minutes a day. I think a better example for in terms of what I see on a regular with caregivers is caregivers who don't take time to go to the doctor for themselves. They'll go once a month with their loved ones, and even more often if necessary. But making their own medical a priority, their own health needs a priority, oftentimes is just put on the back burner. And as I shared with you the story of my cousin Cornelia, that's exactly what she did. And so I want to make sure that other caregivers that I know don't fall into that trap. Write your pledge down. Write down whatever your self-care pledge is to yourself. You heard me say earlier, self-care is non-negotiable. Well, what does that look like for you? Write it down and be specific. Make it achievable. Don't start off, if you haven't exercised regularly for 5 years, don't start off saying, I'm going to exercise 5 days a week, because that's likely not realistic. So we want you to make it realistic and make it achievable. The next thing you want to do is establish a time frame. When is this going to happen? The time frame is important because if you don't set a time frame, all of the other stuff is going to get in the way. And then from there, share your pledge. You're welcome to share it with me if you don't have anybody to share it with. You can join our support group and share there, but identify someone in your world that you can share your pledge with, because they are likely to hold you accountable. Monitor your progress. Watch what you're doing. Assess if you're sticking to what it is that you say is non-negotiable and that you have to do for your own self-care. You're the only person that can critique it and determine for yourself if you're on track or not. And then practice self-compassion. That compassion that you have for other people, other circumstances, reflect that back to yourself. From there, if need be, seek professional help. You can call me. You can reach out to a coach, a counselor, a therapist to support you if you find that you are not making yourself the priority and you are not taking care of yourself. If you realize that you're struggling in that area, reach out to someone that can support you. And then finally, stay committed. Stay committed to what you say you want to do for yourself. And it's okay to make adjustments. It's okay to change your mind and say, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to do this instead. Just as long as you're intentional about identifying and doing something that allows you to focus on you and allow you to take care of yourself. So I'm close to the final slide now, but what I have posted here is a calendar. And it's probably been about 4 years that I have been exercising and using a color-coded calendar. A color-coded calendar is so advantageous because when you talk about accountability, it really allows you to be accountable to yourself. I look at my calendar and I don't see enough red, and this calendar represents a fair amount of red, but I've got work to do on this calendar. Red is my color. Red is my self-care. That means on a daily basis, my goal is to make sure I've got red represented on my calendar. And that can be any of the things that are important to me around self-care, whether it's exercise, whether it's prayer and meditation, whether it is making time for my girlfriends, whether it's date night with my husband. Those things are important, and they show up on my color-coded calendar. And when I don't see red, and I don't see enough red, it's an immediate nudge for me to add something to this calendar, add something to this day and to this week that assures me that I have scheduled myself on my own calendar. Because the interesting thing about your calendar is that it's going to fill up with all of the things that you have to do. Scheduling yourself should be a #1 priority. My mentor and coach, Cynthia James, taught me this 4 years ago, and I contend it's one of the most important tools that I've used over the last 4 years, and it absolutely makes a difference. And I daily am able to look and see based on what's going on. As you guys can see, well, today is the 7th of September, and I do have a red activity there. So my workout did happen this morning. I did have my prayer and meditation time, but I probably need to make sure I've got some red tomorrow going on. So creating a color-coded calendar is an easy tool. Anybody who has a smartphone can do that, and I strongly encourage you to do so. Okay, I am throwing up my contact information here with information on contacting me through my website, my phone number, as well as the very bottom line. If any of you are interested in participating in the caregiver support group, you can reach out to us at tcgcares.com/caregiver-call, and you can sign up to participate in our weekly support group call. Okay, now I want you to pull out your phone. I want you to take out your phone, and even those of you who are not on camera, I want you to go to the camera on your phone. And for those of you that I can see, I'm watching and I'm waiting. Take out the camera on your phone. And I want you to press record on your phone and repeat after me. I matter. I am more important than anyone or anything in my life. Self-care is my right. From today forward, I choose to make myself the #1 priority in my life so that I may continue to take care of those I love, so that I will continue to take care of me. Thank you very much. Okay, now it's time for our book giveaway. Okay, I see a hand, Rhonda.
I was just clapping.
Okay.
We use some applause. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, it's time for our book giveaway. So is it Amber who's got the information around who was the first person?
Yes, she does.
Awesome sauce. So Amber, do you want to let us know who the winner of the book set, Tears in My Gumbo and Prayers in My Gumbo are?
Yes, and to clarify, I have the information only for the first person who joined our call today.
Okay.
And that person was Dr. Loretta Lyle. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lyle. We will get to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So we need to make sure
Wonderful
that,
session. Wonderful
oh,
session.
excelente. We want to make sure we've got your contact information so that we can mail those out to you this week, and you'll have them top of next week. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. And I'm going to select a person. I mean, Raya is a regular part of our support group, and I know she already has the book, but I would love to choose Patty as a recipient of the second set that we're giving away.
I think that would be great. She dropped a note in the chat that she had to leave, but we can get her email address and information to you.
Excelente. Okay. All righty. That said, I do want to open it up for questions that I missed, and there was definitely a comment. And let's see, did I write down? Gosh, who was it that had a question and they said that they would wait? That was Robin. Yes, thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Ms. Nadine. I appreciate it. This was so wonderful. This is my first time joining. So this was amazing. Couple things. I appreciate the color-coded calendar. When I was working in the office, I would always put on my calendar a time to go out and walk every day, a couple times a day. But since the pandemic, I've been working from home, which I dearly love, but I'm busier working from home than I was in the office. So it's a struggle to get out, make sure I'm taking time for myself. So I'm going to take advantage of that color coding and do it again while I'm working from home. So thanks for that tip. I wanted to circle back to what Ms. Patty was saying about the boundary settings, because I live and work in Sacramento, and my mom and my family are in the Bay Area. So my sister and I would, trade off, and we would do our due diligence to do our part to take care of our mom. But I found myself, if I didn't, I guess, put some limits on things would just be falling on myself. And I'm the kind of person that would just take it on because I want to get it done. So when it came to our transportation issue, I was like, I've been traveling more than she is. It's 100 miles to the day from here. And I found myself doing like 60 plus miles to meet up with her to get mom to bring her back to my place. I'm like, you know what? I need to go on MapQuest and map this out.
Okay.
And figure out what the midpoint is, because it's a struggle getting to the Bay or halfway to the Bay with the traffic. The people drive so crazy now. So it's like, I need to let her know that we need to meet more in the middle. Because I was sometimes going from here like to Tracy and sometimes beyond. So now we meet in Stockton. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. So this is the meeting place from now on, and this is where we're gonna meet. And I felt so much better. My mindset was like, you know what, this is gonna be wonderful because it does take an hour to get to Stockton. Well, some not take me 90 minutes to get to Tracy if it was traffic or an accident. So it's like, I need to set some boundaries, and it's been working out fabulous ever since. So I just want to say that boundaries are so important for our mental well-being and mental health. So thank you for that.
It really is. And thank you for sharing that, Robin. And kudos to you for recognizing that, I need to do something different here. Because if you don't, the resentment builds up, right? And that's unhealthy. And it just becomes the snowball effect. And I'm so glad you recognize that. All righty. Next question.
Well, I don't know. While somebody's thinking about their question, Robin brought up something that I was going to ask you to address a little bit more, Nadine, and that is around mental health. You talked about, we're talking about self-care, but, having gone through the process myself of being a caregiver for my mom and knowing how physically demanding and, mentally, emotionally, and all of that. So what tips do you have for being mindful about our mental health and making sure that we take care of that?
Thank you for the question, Rhonda, because mental health is absolutely essential to our overall well-being, particularly during the caregiving journey. And so recognizing that asking for help as was one of the listed points of creating your self-care plan. Seeking help is so very, very important. Just as we as caregivers are recognizing that we cannot do this alone, that we need support from family members, friends, healthcare workers, we need something other than ourselves in order to maneuver and travel through this journey. Our mental health is absolutely essential. When we find that we are not ourselves, that we are being adversely impacted by the sleeplessness, restlessness, by the exhaustion. I used to call the exhaustion that I experienced was bone marrow and bone marrow exhaustion, because it was a fatigue that I just had never experienced before. When your loved one is no longer able to sleep and you're providing round-the-clock care, even when you have health and you're sleep deprived, you will recognize that you are out of whack. And it has been time to reach out to a professional for support. We learned through COVID that therapy is a good thing. Therapy is necessary, and seeking that additional support is vital to our overall health and well-being. It's actually an important tool in the tool chest for our overall caregiving strategies. So thanks for that question, Rhonda. Cheryl Brown, she had your hand up.
Sorry, I had it on mute. Thank you so much for this today. This has been quite a session, and you are quite a beautiful young lady. I have a caregiver group, and we meet twice a month on Tuesdays, and it's turning out really, really well. But I think we need to do more with each other. We do it online because most people are taking care of someone, and I think that you would be a great addition to come and give us a session. So I would love to have you come and do that.
I welcome the opportunity, Cheryl, and look forward to connecting with you so we can make something happen.
Great. And know that I am the chair of the California Commission on Aging. So if there is anything that anyone needs from our commission is the commission that is the spokesperson for seniors in the state. And by state statute, we are. And it's a great organization or a great commission. And if anyone would need anything that we could help them with, we are open. And I would love to see more and more people ask their assembly member or their state senator or their governor to appoint them to that commission. We need more people that look like us to get on these commissions and boards. We don't have enough, and most things now are virtual. So
yeah, Cheryl, could you put your contact information and information about the website or how to get connected to that resource in the chat?
Okay, I will do that. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was really a great, I didn't hear it all, but I did get half of it anyway, and I'm going to go back and look at your recording. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and please feel free to share it with people in your network too. We have one more session. I'll talk about that shortly, but we do have one more session left in the series in November. So please extend an invitation to your network and colleagues to attend that session as well. And just looking at the time, I can't believe it's 1 o'clock already, but wanted to make sure if there were any burning questions or if anyone needed a question answered before we say goodbye today, to provide the opportunity for you to do that. Nope, no other questions at the moment.
I'm not able to leave that information now.
Okay.
In the chat. Oh, maybe I can. Okay.
Okay, if there's an issue, just let us know and then we'll
okay.
share it with everyone. Yes, so thank you everyone for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here and hear this important information about caregiving, caring for ourselves as we're caregiving for others. And I think whether we are a caregiver or not, having self-care as a priority is important. And I think especially for all of us as women, and particularly as Black women, that is an important thing for us to be mindful of and commit to doing for ourselves every day. And so unfortunately, the lettering here is a little off, but the first topic here is actually our caregiving. Well, actually it's for our diabetes series. It's Control the Controllable. So our next session is on September 21st at 5 p.m. and it's managing stress and balancing diabetes prevention. We do have another session after that called Smoking Cessation. That date has yet to be determined. We have a session coming up in October in recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's connected to the Non-Toxic Black Beauty Project that we are working on. And that is a session called Brands, Beauty, and Breast Cancer. So we'll be talking about some of the harmful chemicals that are in hair care and personal care products that are specifically marketed to Black women and girls, and the health risks that are associated with them, one of them being breast cancer risk. And then we have one more session in the series of caregiving in the Black community, and that's on November 9th in recognition of National Caregiver Awareness Month. And that is a session on navigating resources. So we have the full set of the series on our YouTube channel. You can watch them there. I think it should be on the archives on the website too. If you missed the previous sessions and want to learn more about what was shared during those times, that you can get that information there. And then next slide. And then, yeah, I apologize for the lettering here, but this is, you can follow us on social media. It's really easy. Everything is on Twitter, LinkedIn, I'm sorry, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's at your CBHN. On LinkedIn, we're CBHN, or the South California Black Health Network. So if you're not connected to us and part of our community yet, please do connect with us on social and keep up with everything that we have going on. You can also visit the events page on the website to see what current events are happening, and also sign up to be on our mailing list. You can also join the Campaign for Black Health Equity and help support us continuing the work that we've been doing and want to continue to do, this being one of them, this session like this being one of them. So I don't have anything else to share, and we will get you your books if you were selected to receive a book from Nadine. And thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. And it's not too early to say have a great weekend, since it's Friday Eve, right?
Friday Eve, yes. Thanks again, Rhonda, and to your team, as well as to AARP for making this possible. And thanks to all of the caregivers that have participated in this process.
And please complete the evaluation form. The link is in the chat. And we'd love to get your feedback on the session today and any thoughts you have about additional topics for other sessions that we could do in the future. Right. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.